Hello, Packers fans, and welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, joined by Tom Silverstein here on a Thursday afternoon. The weather is dropping spoons steadily as we gear up for a game day that is supposed to feature 1 degree temperatures. One. That's just one more than zero.
That'll be your first 1 degree, right?
I can't fathom it. My mind can't comprehend a single-digit temperature day.
Well, you're not even factoring in wind chill either. So
Stop.
we're going to have a good time in the pregame with Leroy Butler, who, by the way, I might as well plug.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell everybody.
I plugged the pregame that we're going to do in the parking lot in frigid temperatures, and you're going to be shooting it. He has made it, is a finalist for the third straight year in the Hall of Fame balloting. And he is the only safety on the ballot, which should open the door for him to make it. But, you never know till it's absolutely confirmed. But I know he's happy. Talked to him briefly today. And so that's a big step forward for him.
Yeah, and a huge deal for a guy that seems like has waited his time and more than deserves to be in there. Spooner, I know you and he do a lot together, so you're pretty close. How big of a deal from your perspective is this for Leroy, if that makes sense?
Oh, I think it's enormous. If you know where he came from, what he overcame, how intelligent a player he was, like no other player I've ever covered. It's, part of a championship Super Bowl team, part of a number one rated defense in the NFL. It's huge. I think it means a ton for him. And I think it means a lot for a lot of people, modern day Packers fans, because there's all the guys from the Lombardi period that made it and have been in forever. But there's not that many guys from the 90s, Reggie White, Favre, and now they got a chance to get Butler in there. So I think it is a big deal.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions, including one from Mike about Leroy's chances. As you mentioned, he is the only safety. I think Dino Barber is a finalist, but he's more of a DB than a pure.
He's a corner.
He's a corner. Yeah. When they were announcing the names on NFL Network, one of the analysts said, he said, we're labeling him as a DB because he was a corner who could play safety. I was like, okay, well, still, but Leroy, as you said, the only pure safety in there, and not to make it sound like this is not still a huge accomplishment, but looking at the ballot, it seems like this really could be his year. He's one of the stronger names and candidates on this ballot, it seems like.
Could be. I never know. I've never been in one of those meetings that take place with 49 committee members, and their debate goes on with each guy. And, our own Pete Doherty will be presenting the argument for Leroy to be in. That's kind of how it works. Someone local who's covered the player makes the presentation. So I do think this is his best chance, no question.
Yeah. Let's move to the current Packers team. You were out at practice today, and report has come out, thanks largely to you. Randall Cobb is back. We see some well wishes from fans in here, and I think we even have some footage here of Randall back. And I think the bigger deal, Spoon, here was not only that he was practicing, but that he was practicing in pads. Granted, this is sort of how the Packers bring their guys back. They bring them back in practice. So it's not necessarily to say that he's going to be out there on Sunday, but how big of a deal was it to see him doing this today in pads and being a participant?
Well, I was really surprised because I was late for practice and I came strolling in there and, I was told, oh, you got about 4 minutes. I'm like, oh, great. And the first thing that caught my eye was there's Randall Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me, that was a big deal. And for him to be in pads, I think that's a big deal. Now, I don't think he's playing this week, and I kind of doubt he'll play next week. I think this is a playoff thing. So they're going to get him practice time. They're not going to push the injury, but so when he hits the playoffs, he's got 2 weeks of practice under his belt and he's ready to roll. So, and he's healthy. So I think that's probably the plan. There's no need to force him in early. If they were devastated with injury at receiver, maybe, but they got MVS back today off the COVID list. And as you and I were talking earlier, they got Lazard, they have Equinemius St. Brown, and Juwan Winfrey, and of course Adams. So they have depth. So they might as well just kind of build him back for the playoffs.
Yeah. It seems like that's going to be their strategy with a lot of different guys. Joe asked, are any important players back from COVID for this weekend's home game? Of course, we said MVS. I'm trying to think if any others have been announced yet. I want to say he's the only one so far that has been announced. But Matthew asked, what is the status on Jair Alexander for the weekend? Now, Jair Alexander was activated yesterday. Yesterday was the last day within that 3-week window that they had to activate him from the designated to return list so that he could not go on season-ending IR. But Spoon, does that mean we see him on Sunday, or could this become sort of a David Bakhtiari situation where he's on the active roster, but he might be inactive come game day?
Yeah, I think that's the case this week. And I kind of think he's in the Randall Cobb mode. So what they'd like to do is keep working him. He's a little bit different in that he's got to feel comfortable with that shoulder. They chose not to do surgery. And so the idea there is that it would heal on its own, and it would heal so that it's very strong and he could play again. And they have to make sure that that's the case, because he's going to have to put his shoulder down and somewhere. And if he's not comfortable doing it, then it's better that he's not on the field. So I think that's the bottom line with him.
And on one hand, you would love to have him out there on a week when you play Justin Jefferson. But on the other hand, your corners have been doing pretty decent, and you're not having to face Adam Thielen this weekend, who is now on season-ending IR, when obviously they have a balanced attack with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson with the Vikings. But how much easier does the job become when you just technically have one superstar downfield threat to stop versus two?
Yeah, I mean, it is a break that they don't have to see Thielen. I think that does change some things for them, that maybe they can double Justin Jefferson more than they did the last time. But it's still, they have a problem with, you have to either decide you're going to stop Dalvin Cook and make the other guys beat you, or you're going to have to stop Justin Jefferson and maybe be worried that Dalvin Cook runs all over you. So, in the game in Minnesota, they did everything to stop Dalvin Cook. I mean, they just loaded the line, and we saw what happened. Justin Jefferson practically beat them one-handed.
Was able to run free downfield, waving his hand for the ball.
Yeah, so I think it's important that they figure out a way to be balanced and be able to defend both.
It's just the aliens intercepting it for a minute. If you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. We're going to get to a few more here. Good one from Gary. It seems to always be the question every week this season. Who's going to return punts? I know you talked to Shannon Sullivan about it today. Do you expect to see him back out there on Sunday?
I'm not. Yeah, I would guess that he would be out there on Sunday. I think they brought in a guy, David Moore, wide receiver, put him on their practice squad. I'm sure they had him catching punts. He's done it before, but my guess is they go with Sullivan. Amari Rogers hasn't been ruled out yet. I think he was added on Tuesday, maybe. Tuesday or Wednesday. So he's got a chance to come back, but I would bet that it's Sullivan.
Yeah. And even if he is back, like we saw during the Browns game, he was put more on kick return and they used a rotating door on punt return. So could that sort of become the norm?
I think he is a better kick returner than he is a punt returner. I think kickoff returns, he's a bigger bodied guy. I just think he's more natural on kickoff returns. He needs to get going a little bit up the field. And so, it may not matter. He may not be there. And then they'll have to go with Sullivan. Eventually they might want to go with Cobb, but that won't be an option this weekend.
Yeah. Amari Rogers was placed on the COVID list on Monday. So
okay, so he has a chance.
He definitely, has a chance to come back. We could hear as soon as tomorrow, if my math is right. I don't know. Yeah. I was told there would be no math.
A bigger question here is who's going to be punting.
Exactly. Something that quite a few people have asked about. Nick asked, is there still a chance we have our punter returning in time? You lose your punter and you lose your holder, which is harder than people realize. We had heard that they were bringing in some people today to try them out. And so have not heard yet for sure how those tryouts went. But it seems like they're looking internally and externally. Do they have the answer internally here, Spoon?
I don't know what that meant internally. Maurice Drayton said that. Now, maybe he meant Corey Bajorquez, that, okay, that's their option in-house and their option outside would be someone else. Now, I don't know if J.J. Molson has punted before, maybe. I know it's not going to be Crosby.
I had a grassroots campaign started my Twitter mentions yesterday for it to be Kurt Benkert.
Yeah. Who knows? You never know. He's pretty good at kneeling, the Packers had a situation. Oh boy, it was before COVID. It was BC, and J.K. Scott's wife was having a baby, and there was a chance he was going to miss the game. So they signed a guy, brought him out. He even warmed up. But J.K. Scott got back on a private plane and made it in time for the game. I think it was against New England. And, they could do that kind of thing this week too. Yeah.
It's going to be some juggling for sure. And it's going to be juggling with a few different places. Randy asked how many are out. Keith asked the same. At one point yesterday, it was 15. And some have come back today, as well as those on the practice squad have been added. So I think it's still right around 15 or 16. Does that sound right player-wise to you, Spoon?
I think so, but, it's a different kind of 15. It's not a Cleveland Browns 15 or 20, right, because it's not, it's not a quarterback. It's not their best wide receiver. It's not either of their running backs. It's it's not their best player at nose tackle. It's not their outside linebackers. It's not their corners. They've really been pretty lucky that it's not affected starters. And so, two of the guys they added on today were on injured reserve, Elton Jenkins and Randy Ramsey. So they're guys who are in the building and, they're doing their rehab in the building, but they must have felt sick and got tested and were put on the list. So while that number is kind of high, it's, it features Ty Summers, who's on injured reserve anyways. Orrin Burks, who's an important member of special teams, but he's not a starter. Um, you know, uh, it's just not. I don't think it's really having a huge impact on their roster. I lost you. I can't hear you.
Sorry, you couldn't hear me. I was going to let you keep going, and you finished up quicker than I thought you would.
Oh yeah, thanks for the.
I know that we kind of thought that we were past dealing with rosters being affected by COVID-19. Of course, that has not been the case the past couple of weeks. But a really interesting point of view that has come out of it, and Eric asked about Kenny Clark. Was he weakened by COVID? You asked him about that yesterday, and I thought he gave a really honest and transparent answer. It was almost shocked at how honest he was. I even texted you and I said that was a great answer from him. Do you think, based on what he said, and I'm going to let you share kind of what he said, and I know people can read about it as well on PackersNews.com, but do you think he was weakened in that first game back, especially the fact that he played so many more snaps than he was expecting to?
Oh, absolutely. He really said he was gassed in the second half, and he was sort of forced to play more snaps because Tyler Lancaster went out. Kingsley Keke was inactive, and Dean Lowry went out for a little bit. So he played way more snaps, and he said he was just totally gassed. And, since he made his comments about what was wrong, he said he had a really bad sore throat. He was coughing. He was just really out of it for 3 days. I've since read a number of accounts of other players around the league, and that it's the same thing. If you're showing symptoms, it's 3 or 4 days, and you just feel absolutely lousy. And I think it's a challenge to come back and play that week.
Right. We're going to take the last one kind of concerning COVID in the NFL. Good question from RC. Would the NFL ever consider bubbling for the playoffs?
That's a good question. I think they would. I think they considered it last year, but they figured out that, their protocols were working. Mm-hmm. And I think what they've run into is a highly contagious variant of COVID that, will affect some players, but not all. A lot of vaccinated players, they're coming back after 5 days. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kevin King was put on it on Saturday, and he was back today. So that's 5 days. That's the minimum you can be out. So there are guys. Shamar Jean-Charles was the same thing. He came back. So I think they're experiencing enough guys who are asymptomatic that they don't feel they absolutely have to bubble. I think if there wasn't a vaccine and this was going on, oh my God, yeah, they would absolutely have to bubble.
And I know it does affect different people differently, but thankfully it does not seem to be as severe with this strain, which is helping at least some as well.
Yeah, and the booster shot is supposed to really help against this, and I don't know how many players have booster shots. That right. To me, that would be really interesting to know. I'm sure they're encouraging it.
The NFL
making us have it.
Right, exactly. NFL is making the media have it. They're not requiring the players to have it, but they are requiring, as we said, media and tier 1 and tier 2 staff and coaches, sort of like what they did with the original vaccine. They are now doing the same with the boosters. We'll see where that goes. Let's kind of jump to some other unavailable players. Levi, with the other question of the hour every week this season, is Bot coming back becoming wishful thinking? Feels the same way with Zadarius.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that way. And also, so if he comes back for the playoffs, let's say he doesn't play this week and he doesn't play against Detroit, can you get him ready in game shape to play, to start and to face, I don't know, what if they face Tampa in the first round? They won't, but, I mean, you might just be better off going with Yosh Nijman at this point.
Right.
I just, it's a mystery why this has gone on this long. I feel bad for Bakhtiari because it's not his fault, and it's an injury. And I'm sure he wants to be out there, but they also have to do what's best for his career. So I am starting to think he won't be back, and I feel the same way about Za'Darius.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I don't think this means anything as far as playing time, but for what it's worth, the Packers did share a video on their Instagram yesterday of Za'Darius Smith walking out to the practice field. So he was at least in the building and around his teammates during practice. So
Well, we've seen him a couple times. I saw him tossing a football to himself a couple times
really,
in the practice facility. So he's there. We see him on the bench. It's not like he's abandoned his teammates. I do wonder, like, let's say they make it to the Super Bowl and they've got that 2 week, break in between. At that point, maybe a guy like Za'Darius can come back. Maybe they feel good about his back at that point. And shoot, that's the kind of guy where if you could just get 20 pass rushes out of him in the Super Bowl, why not? And so, I think that's why he's still working at it. Otherwise, he'd be at home, rehabbing for next year.
Can you imagine if he had not played in like months and then he comes in and has like 2 sacks and a forced fumble in the Super Bowl?
If there's a guy who could do it, it would probably be him.
Really?
He's a remarkable athlete. So I'm not ruling him out all the way. It's a little different with Bakhtiari in my mind. It's like playing offensive line is different than pass rushing. And I just think you can throw a pass rusher out there. You can't necessarily throw a left tackle and expect him to block Myles Garrett or, whoever it is right away.
Yeah, or Shaq Barrett from the Bucks or any of those guys. Speaking of, Levi with a follow-up, is there any fear Bach won't be the same all-pro talent after this injury? His teammates have addressed this, and Aaron Rodgers said 85% of David Bakhtiari is better than 100% of most other left tackles, which is fair. And then I think it was Lucas Patrick who said sort of the same thing today, albeit in different words. Do you take that with a grain of salt, or do you think that there's something to that a David Bakhtiari not playing at his top level is still better than what you would get out of most other guys in that position?
I think that's probably true, but you're paying him as an all-pro talent, and at some point, if he's not, what do you do? I think we don't know. I don't think anybody knows until he gets back on the field and starts playing. Who knows? Maybe a good off season, maybe not playing in another off season will make it so that he comes back, really good. But there's a thing about David Bakhtiari that I'm sure personnel people noticed and may have had concerns is, he's a long-legged guy. He shouldn't be 320 pounds. He's not built to be 320 pounds. I remember talking to him about this. His brother is, after he stopped playing, dropped to 215 or some ridiculous weight, and I just think Bakhtiari isn't meant to be as big as he is. And maybe his knees are feeling that. I don't know. Either way, I think he's such a good athlete that I think he can come back and play even if he's not. I agree with Rodgers. Even if he's not 100%, you would take him at 85%. That's for sure.
As you said, they are paying him as an all-pro. They got a lot of guys that they're going to be having to pay as all-pro if they keep them around. We have discussed this quite a few times, the juggling act that they're going to have to do with their salary cap next year. Gary asked, did the Packers go ahead and try to sign Adams to an extension is going with Rodgers leaning with his praising the Packers?
It's too early to tell. That the Rodgers thing has to play out. They've waited this long with Adams. he's not going to do anything. He's going to free agency.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to pay his, and I'm just talking about how I would handle it, and I'm sure that he's thinking this way too. He did all the risk. He took all the risk. He played the whole year. And now he's probably thinking, well, okay, I played for free or whatever my salary was this year. Now you got to pay up. And
He's certainly earning it.
I don't know if they can pay it. I don't know if they can pay it unless Rodgers is gone. They're going to have to do some salary cap magic to bring this entire team back. And that's, like I said in our podcast last week, that discussion is coming, but it's not for right now.
Yeah. But as you said, he took the risk, and unless he gets a career-ending injury here in the next couple of weeks, that risk certainly paid off. He's earned every bit of whatever he's going to get coming to him. We're going to take a couple more last ones here. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in. But this is a good one from Randy with playoff scenarios. You tweeted the playoff scenarios the other night, and it made my head hurt trying to follow along. What are the playoff scenarios right now? What needs to happen over the next weekend or two for Green Bay to lock up the number 1 seed?
Of course, they win their next two. They have the home field advantage. They can clinch home field advantage Sunday if they win and Dallas loses. Then it's over. The other stuff was all about ties. Don't worry about that stuff. That's,
like kissing your sister.
That's just the statistic guys going crazy, like we have to give every single scenario. Basically, Packers need Dallas to lose to Arizona, and they need to beat the Vikings, and then they don't have to worry about it in week 18.
Mm-hmm. Just win, baby. Just win. Yep. I know you said the salary cap conversation is down the road, but I'm going to throw one more at you because this is something to consider over the next couple of weeks. Could a Rodgers new deal help the 2022 cap? And with the way he's been talking lately, if it's to be believed, would he be willing to take a deal that would help the cap?
Yeah, I mean, there's a way they could structure it where it would, but it would kill them 2 or 3 years down the road, and it might affect whether they can, how they structure Jair Alexander. Basically, it would put them in either they're going to pay the piper next year or they're going to pay the piper in 2 or 3 years. And which do they want to do? And which piper is going to be cost more? I don't know. If you have to pay Rodgers $50 million a year, and you could spread it out over 7 years or 5 years. I guess you can use it for cap reasons. That's great, but he better play 5 years, or else it's going to all come tumbling down on you. And don't forget, you have to re-sign Jair Alexander. You have to re-sign Elton Jenkins. I mean, you'd like to bring back Robert Tonyan. You'd like to re-sign Rasul Douglas. You'd like to re-sign Devondre Campbell. I mean, you're talking MVS is up. That's a guy you'd like to bring back. God, there's probably, Billy Turner, I think, is going to be up soon. Adrian Amos, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith. I mean, it's just all that you have to kind of decide who. Are you going to go with the quarterback, or are you and live without some other guys, or are you going to live with those guys and try to live with Jordan Love?
Yeah. It also makes you realize how important it is that they make the run this year with this roster, because it's not going to look the same next year.
Right.
So, on that note, we're going to take one final question here. Steve asks, what team do we not want in the playoffs? And or follow up, can we beat any team in the playoffs?
Tampa. They don't want to play Tampa Bay.
So
flat out. Tampa Bay, they had not a good matchup against Tampa Bay. Maybe they could beat them the second time around. I think they could handle Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
They've already beaten the Rams. 49ers, they've already beaten. Arizona, they've already beaten. I did the one team that's to me standing in their way is Tampa.
Yeah. Tampa has, no offense to Zeke Elliott, but Tampa with Leonard Fournette has developed into a stronger running team, in my opinion, and that has proven to be the Packers' kryptonite over the past couple of weeks is their run defense. Your face is saying you don't agree.
No. All I'm thinking in my head is Tom Brady. Tom
Yeah.
Brady. Tom
Well,
Brady.
yeah,
Tom
you've
Brady.
got Tom Brady and then all
That's
these other pieces around him that that's a tough team to get by just with him. And then you add in a strong run
yeah, but
game and a defense with a pass rush that's going to be going up against an offensive line that has done well to be patched together, but at the end of the day is still patched together.
yeah. The game goes like this. When you're the Packers, you're on this side with you're on this side with Aaron Rodgers, right? Because he's so much better than the other guy you're facing. You bring Tom Brady in, and it's like this. It nullifies Aaron Rodgers' excellence because Tom Brady's every bit as good. And so suddenly then it's everybody around him and who has the better team. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will. And we will be there to cover it for you all. They've got to get through the Minnesota Vikings first and spoon this.
Yeah, if we go any longer, it'll be kickoff time.
I do. Hey, that's what we're aiming for here. Minnesota Vikings have proven to be a tough out and the past couple of times, and so we'll see if maybe the third time is the charm for the Packers. We'll be there to cover it for you all. And over a holiday weekend, enjoy your New Year's, everyone. I hope you get some black-eyed peas. And then bundle up and come out and see us on Sunday as the Packers get ready to take on the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Tom.